And I think one of the things which you mentioned about the last 8, 9 months and how we look at things going forward, I think the first thing which we have to realize as human beings, we are hardwired to the fact that we all seek predictability. So as we're ending the year, we are going to be thinking that 2021 is going to be different. And, we'll look up all the astrological books and talk to all people and then say, okay, 2021, this is going to change, that is going to change. But just shifting of dates does not change things. And that is something which I think people will slowly realize. It's not just the stock market, it's not just your wealth, but I think overall things will take a long, long time to settle down. And till the time that happens, one of the key things which will continue to be a feature of the stock markets and feature of all asset classes per se is going to be volatility. So instead of getting worried about volatility, I think what I have been talking to my investors is make volatility a friend. Okay, volatility means that at times you'll feel that you've been left out, but equally it will mean that you will get a chance to get back in. So stick to your asset allocation. Okay, don't try to time the markets in a way. Don't try to worry about the fact that you missed the bus. Volatility will give you enough opportunities. So this is the single biggest thing which I've been driving home. And I think it has been very well appreciated by investors. One is, I think that each of these investment or rather these wealth management companies that you mentioned, each of them has a very loyal set of customers who extol virtues about a bank-led wealth management service with the best or a broking-led bank-led service. And of course, there are detractors, but I'm not talking about the people who extol the virtues. Which means that at the end of the day, comfort is more important than conviction. Okay? If you look at your own self, where you invest and why you invest, one of the key tenets you will find is that you're comfortable. You're either comfortable with the brand, or you're comfortable with the individual in that particular brand or the company, or the technology that is coming to the fore. So I think it's an amalgamation of all of that. My sense is that this will continue. This will continue, the comfort being more important than conviction. The second facet is that there is going to be an evolution. And why will there be an evolution is because at the back end, when you talk about manufacturer products, that itself is going to evolve. Think about it. 10 years ago, we were struggling to talk about SIPs. 10, 15 years ago, SIP was something which we had to really make somebody sit down and explain to them. But today, SIPs has replaced FDs as the retail investors lexicon. And accordingly, if you realize people who are doing the asset allocation, they've changed their business models, they've changed the way they look at things. So I think evolution of the manufacturing products itself will lead to an evolution in terms of the wealth management products. The home truth is that technology is going to be increasingly driving things. People seek value. People talk about paying fees, but I think people seek value. People want to have more at a lesser cost, and that is the value the Indian customer keeps exacting. He's very exacting in that. So the point is that as technology becomes simpler for people to operate, you will find the human interface starting to gradually go down. It is already starting to happen. The retail customers, by and large, are dealing with technology. The human interface is now restricted to the ultra HNI, but even there, you are now seeing more and more comfort coming with technology. 5 years from now, I see all of these evolve. I see none of them going away. This is a huge market. Okay, what will go more than the rest is something which we will have to wait and watch. But at an operational leverage thing, if you've got your act right, if your value proposition is very clear, if your narrative is very clear, doesn't matter what your background is, and as long as you have some commoditized technology in terms of customer onboarding and servicing, you're home. Next 5 years, I don't think you need to worry about too much. Caveat I should mention here, risk factor, like the same mutual fund I should mention here. Full disclosure, I was part of the mutual fund advisory committee for 7 years with SEBI. So I've had an inside track on a lot of things and I understand how the regulator works. See, for the regulator, the most important thing is that the investor should be protected. They don't care about anything else, and rightfully so. Okay, they say that if the investor is not taken care of, especially a retail investor, if he's fleeced, if he loses his money, and we've seen that happening time and again. You've seen that in cooperative banks, you've seen that in broking outfits. So you can understand that the regulator is very wary about that. However, what the regulator has probably missed is that the regulatory framework which has been created for mutual funds, let's talk about mutual funds to start with, has been so strong that anything which is organically added there it will only restrict things, which is starting to happen now. Okay, so I think from that point of view, we could ease up on the regulation. The advisory versus distributor piece is part of that. I'm just taking that at a holistic level. If you do only distribution, at times there is a danger that commissions drive the sales. If you do only advisory, chances are that the guy is not making enough money, the distributor is not making, the advisor is not making enough money, and you might just walk off, right? Leaving the investor in a lurch. Either way, is the investor suffers. So there has to be a balancing act which needs to be done. So from that point of view, I think not just mutual funds. Now we see SEBI is trying to mutual fundize even the alternate space. And one of the debates I've been having with people, informally is, why should there be a direct plan in a PMS? Okay, there should be no direct plan in a PMS because unlike mutual funds, there is no hard-coded charge you need to put. Each customer, when he comes to you, talks to you, you can give him a performance link structure, you can give him a fixed structure, you can do anything for him, right? So that's something which I don't understand. So to that extent, I think this whole space of advisory versus distribution is going to have people standing on both sides of the fence. From the regulator's point of view, you need to be either an advisor, which is working on a fee, or a distributor, which is working for a commission. You can't advise. But if you look at it from a customer, okay, he doesn't really know the difference between an advisor and a distributor. He wants to make money, and as long as you make money for him, he doesn't care whether you get paid by the manufacturer or you're charging him a small fee. In fact, let me just correct that. He will actually question you when he has to pay a fee, especially during bullish times, when he think that you're just making money for the heck of it, right? So it's a very tricky thing. My sense is that it is going to evolve. There will be some accidents along the way. And it is good it is happening now rather than 5 or 7 years later, when things would have reached a scale and a framework where it would be too difficult to change. I used to often tell SEBI, you've got a bullet train coming down. So just in terms of retail participation. So let's not try to change the tracks. But obviously we're trying to tinker with the tracks. The train has already started moving. So hopefully before it comes too close, we would have fixed whatever we needed to fix. Right now it's very difficult to predict. But if you ask me honestly, I look at it from a very different point of view. I'm saying now the investor has to be certified. It happens globally. You have certified investors. It has to be caveat emptor. How long can you just depend on advisors or advice? You should be able to choose between advisors. So this is now the time for investors to get certified. See, there are 400 plus players in the PMS industry. And why are there so many players? One is because the entry barrier to set up a PMS outfit is very, very low. You can set it up with a few crore rupees. You really don't need 100 crores like what you need in a mutual fund right now to set it up. 2, I think there is still money to be made for an investment manager. 3, and more importantly, what people don't realize, for an investment manager, he gets a lot of freedom. He doesn't have to be benchmark high because the customer, which is there at the end of the spectrum, he also understands what he's getting. So you can run a 12 stock portfolio. We run a 12 stock portfolio, 15 stock portfolio, equated portfolios. We do the works, right? And customers like that. From a PMS point of view, what has been a little bit of a dampener is the fact that there have been a lot of investment managers who come in, but now because of the minimum ticket size, they're finding it difficult to attract money, and that is something which is a little bit of a concern. But this was bound to happen one way or the other. I think consolidation was bound to happen. The good news, however, is the way I see it is that if you look at mutual funds, they used to be a source of alpha earlier, correct? Now, and this is strictly my perception, the alpha is now coming to the alternates business. People like us are able to take advantage of that, and the beta is going to ETFs. So the last few launches which you will see in mutual funds, they're all index funds and ETFs and they've got asset allocation funds. Because in the current scheme of things, they are going to be hard pressed to deliver alpha. But for a PMS and AIF industry, the alternates industry, if we don't screw it up, I think the future looks very, very bright. So while consolidation will happen and some fund managers will stay the course or they'll align themselves to larger fund managers, I think the future looks very, very bright for the alternates industry. Before I answer that, I must tell you one of the reasons why money is coming into broking, apart from a lot of other reasons which you mentioned, is that they made it very simple for an investor to just come in. I think credit has to be given to the industry. The last 15-20 years, the way they brought down costs and the way they've aligned themselves to the regulation and the way they made things easy, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. 10 years ago, if you would have told me, while walking in a mall, I can actually buy and sell a stock on an ETF, on an app, I would have looked at you with a little bit of surprise. But I think it's been brilliant, and it's across the board. It's not just one or two players. In terms of the customers, there is this narrative which is going around, which talks about the fact that people have had time sitting in their houses. They've had time to read, upgrade themselves, and do that, which is true. Also, the fact that this is a bunch of people who's actually been a little bit more ambitious and a little bit more experimentative to go out in the markets. And as they've tasted blood, as they've made money, they've flocked in droves. Correct? The reverse will also happen. There will be a reverse migration. They will burn their fingers. But the good news is that they've actually come into the markets and they know what is being talked about. Now, one basic thing which we all worry about, and I think I'm old school, so I used to think there used to be this bear, bulls and pigs sort of an analogy. And retail investors, the pigs, they come into the market to get slaughtered. You'll be amazed. I think they're more like rabbits. Not just because they're multiplying, but because they're very agile. They know exactly what they want to do. They know exactly where they want to get out. Till the time greed gets better of them and they succumb to whatever. I think they're a very smart bunch of Indians. Very, very smart bunch of Indians. I have had people who got into trading, who want to invest in PMSs, and the questions they ask me are far more insightful and intense than what I would have expected them to be. So I would not dismiss them as flash in the pan investors, that they've just come in and just because the lockdown allowed that. I think this is a seriously smart bunch of people who've come into the markets, and it's very good for them. Not just farming or tractors or whatever, the whole ecosystem. The agricultural bill has been phenomenally, it's been revolutionary to say the least. And notwithstanding what is happening in terms of farmer protests, I think there is some merit in terms of what is being discussed. But at an overall level, if you see the way the farm bill is cleaning out the inefficiencies in terms of pricing, in terms of distribution, in terms of communication, in terms of warehousing, it's unbelievable. And if I can just take a minute to explain to you what it means, this entire MSP thing which is being talked about. Last year, if what I've read is right, the demand for the country or the Food Corporation of India is something like 49 million square feet of space to store wheat and paddy. Last year, the production was 94 million. So it's actually rotting out there. The problem in this country is not food anymore. We are still living in the hangover of the emergency days. It's nutrition. So what the government is trying to do through this agricultural bill and a lot of other stuff is to push people to grow more value-added stuff. Now, if that happens, you're talking about farmer incomes going up. You have 15% of the country's land, 15% of the country's GDP, and 60% of the population depending on it. It's hugely imbalanced. So this is it's a force multiplier, agriculture. And I think that is not just a one or two, I think it's a decade theme right now. The second one is medical infrastructure. Okay, I think we know globally, even in the best of countries, we've not paid enough attention to medical infrastructure. And I think anything and everything revolving around medical infrastructure is set for a boom, even insurance. And for India, it can be a big thing because we can actually engage in medical tourism. So these are two themes which come to my mind, apart from contract research. People talk about contract research. People talk about specific industries as verticals. I look at contract research as a horizontal. So whether it is CRAMS or whether it is white goods or whether it is chemicals or textiles, this could change the face of this country. So if you look at 3 to 5 years, I think we are in the right place at the right time. And hopefully there should be a lot of dollar inflows. Emerging markets should pick up a lot of money. And India should be in the pole position to take advantage of all of this. So I'm very bullish on the markets per se for the next 3 to 5 years. Please don't ask me for the next 3 to 5 months. I may not be able to answer.